Hey everybody, Spencer Presley here for a very special video to celebrate finally reaching 1000. Boy, that's a motion that I'm sure I won't regret later in life. We're finally reaching 1,000 subscribers, and yes, I am keeping that in. For finally reaching 1,000 subs, I decided to finally do a proper 2020 collection update video for all of my PlayStation Vita games. So if any of you know me, you know there are very few things I'm as passionate or knowledgeable on as PlayStation Vita is my favorite, not only handheld, but just like system of all time. I play it all the time, even in a post-Switch world, so I have amassed quite a beefy collection, even if I do say so myself. So we're not going to go over collector's editions, we're just going to go over regular retail cases. And the order for this one I decided to do is mostly stick with retail stuff first, and then kind of finish off the video with the more limited companies like Limited Run, Strictly Limited, and EastAsiaSoft, stuff like that. So without further ado, because God knows this video is going to be long, and if the last one is anything to go off of, there are people out there dedicated enough to watch this. So if you watch this entire video, please let me know in the comments below, because you are awesome and you are very dedicated, or you are just very much looking for something Vita related on YouTube today. So for the most part, this is going to be alphabetical related, but I have been on a weird kick recently with, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Lego games. Wow. Why? So, long story short, my only Lego game until a couple of weeks ago I ever owned was Lego The Force Awakens. A really, really solid Lego game, actually, and was my first one for years. I think the last one I owned before that was Lego Star Wars 2 on PSP. So, why do I now own every Lego game on the Vita? So, besides having very, very bad self-control, these games are dirt cheap, like even if you want them new. I think the cheapest one I got was Lego Chima, was $4 for like in free shipping. So at that point the dude is just like begging to have people take these copies away. And what it started off is okay, I kind of wanted Lego Avengers. Looking at a couple other ones, be like, oh, be interesting to see what these are like, because all of these are unique ports from their home console version, and sometimes they are the DS version, sometimes they are the iPhone version, and it's just this weird amalgamation of stuff. So kind of a personal project that I will hopefully end up talking more about them in the future. But yes, without further ado, let's dive into this now that I've explained why I am a 27-year-old man with every Lego game on Vita. So, first up, we have Lego Harry Potter, years 5 through 7. Not 1 through 4, because that would make too much sense. Lego Batman 2. Lego Lord of the Rings. Lego Chima once again. Lego Marvel, not the good one. Lego Movie, the video game. Lego The Hobbit. Lego Ninjroids. Lego Batman 3. Lego Ninjago 2, and then when they started getting very good, Lego Jurassic World, Lego Marvel Avengers, and finally, Lego The Force Awakens. Oof. Remember back when everyone was excited for Star Wars? What a time to be alive. What a concept. Universally loves Star Wars things. Alright, so this one I also have to start off, and now we're backed up to the A's. I've got to talk about this. AW Phoenix Vesta. So, if you are a collector out there and do not know about this game, consider yourself lucky. If you do know about this game and don't own a copy, I'm very, very sorry. This was actually my kickstart into Vita importing, and I randomly learned about this game at some anime expo where Bandai Namco announced they were bringing this over digitally. And I was like, I've never heard of this anime. I think it stands for like Asterix War. And basically through random Twitter searches, I found a physical copy was getting made in parts of Asia. And that's when I learned about Asian English physical copies, which you will see many, many, many of here. I don't know all of them, just because for my Vita collection, I think it's important to kind of show that unless there's something I have a really big interest in, I'm not a full setter. I've always kind of thought full set collecting just was like a waste of time in terms of like, what good does it do for me to own every sports game on Vita if I don't like playing, say, FIFA? Or what good does it have me to own every farming simulator if that's not something I want to play? So, either way, this really kickstarted it, and for my knowledge, I think it only ever got one print run. And it's a really, really solid, just like beat 'em up game. It is all in English, but you had to get this from Asia to play it. The price for it has just absolutely ballooned and skyrocketed, though. So next up, Aegis of Earth, a really, really, like, under talked about Acquire game. It was on PS3, PS4, and Vita, and it's basically just like a tower defense game, which there's quite a few of out there, but especially in terms of like getting a retail one, this one I feel like kind of just came and went, not a lot of people talk about. Oh my gosh, this one I love. So I am a huge Adventure Time from long ago, and what's so crazy about this is I wanted a physical version of this game so bad. So this is, unless I'm crazy, this is the only PlayStation Vita Adventure Time game there ever was. So if you can't read Japanese, this is the Link to the Past like by Way Forward. Why did I blank on that so long? And this is basically just if Way Forward made Link to the Past a Adventure Time game and put it on Vita. It got a physical release on everything it came out for at the time except for Vita. And the game is actually even now famously delisted. I remember it had a crazy sale way back when of it was 99 cents. And they were like, hey, we have to delist this game, make it as cheap as possible, and it just skyrocketed in the charts. So I own the English version of the digital one and was like, wow, this is really good. And a couple of years back, this really small publisher, Lightweight, just ended up putting out a physical version way after the American one. And so the unfortunate thing with this is, like, it's cool. Like, it's a physical copy. Not a lot of these really happen, especially if you're, like, a Way Forward collector fan. Like, I'm sure this will eventually skyrocket or whatever. Not to, like, Shantae numbers, but I'm sure it'll get there one day. But the unfortunate thing is it's only Japanese, so even though all the text and voices, like, they probably could have fit them in the Vita sides cart, they just kind of kept it strictly Japanese. That might have something to do with, like, Cartoon Network's licensing deal, but, hey, I'm not paid enough to think about that too much. So let's go back and kind of start skipping over some stuff. So Akiba's Beat, the sequel to Akiba's Trip, which is also a sequel, but this one is more of a JRPG. But hey, another very underrated Acquire game. Akiba's Strip, technically a sequel to a PSP game. The Amazing Spider-Man. So this is another game that I kind of have to explain owning, because a lot of people are going to be like, oh, this game's like really underwhelming, or why do you have this version? So this game is like stupid expensive now, especially by Vita standards. It is delisted. It is the only open world Spider-Man game, not counting Disney Infinity, on the Vita. And I came across it for like 20 bucks at a used shop a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I have to get this. I want this game enough to check it out and make my own opinion for it, but then at the same time, it's like, I don't really like want to pay the like almost 100 bucks people are paying for this, like with the case and everything else. So I was like, let's skip on that. So I own it, and I'll say this: if you ever get a chance to find this really cheap, it's not a bad game. Definitely technically wise, they're having a hard time running on it, but hey, for an open world Spider-Man game, it could do much worse. This one, I think I literally was like, I was at a GameStop and it was in a pretty good condition. Angry Birds Star Wars, not a great version, not the best version of the game, just another delisted game that I'm like, Angry Birds isn't like bad. So just a weird oddity I have. Next up, we have Arno Surge Plus, a very pricey Vita game, especially if you want to go for the big fancy collector's edition. This was one of those games that started you could only get the physical version in the West if you bought the collector's edition from NIS, which I'm sure many people are not a fan of. Arcana Heart 3 Love Max, exclamation point, times like 5, I think. Just a super solid beat 'em up. Army Corps of Hell, a launch title in the West and pretty forgotten game on the Vita, but I mean, it was so cheap, in the like mechanic alone of you're basically in hell and it's Pikmin sold me on it. Assassin's Creed Chronicles, Assassin's Creed 3 is next. And my very first PlayStation Vita game I ever got, Assassin's Creed 3 Liberations. Super underrated in my opinion, but I know the Assassin's Creed games are kind of all over. Another Atelier game. This is Atelier Escanlagi. Then next we have Atelier Chalet Plus. Axiom Verge, famously put out by the very terrible company Badland Games. But super awesome game nonetheless if you like Axiom Verge. Bad Apple Wars, one of very many visual novels we will get to, I'm sure, in time. Bard's Tale. So yeah, Bard's Tale, I kind of just throw these in. This is technically a limited release as well. This is by Red Art Games, who I feel really bad because they got kind of thrown under the bus by limited run games when they were first kind of announced. And I feel like they've been slowly picking up pace in terms of their prevalence as a publisher of limited stuff, but they were like started right at the gate with like a really big winner of, they had a physical version of the Bard's Tale, and they even had the Vita version, which famously had a lot of like kind of troubles and bugs, and they went through the trouble of actually patching it. It was a bit of a rocky start, but they have 6 other games you'll see throughout the list here. But yeah, Bard's Tale, I'm pretty sure is still in stock and is a really, really solid remaster of like a PS2 Xbox era game. God, talking about forgotten stuff. Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate. Made by Armature, a bunch of people from Bluepoint. It is a sequel to Batman Arkham Origins and plays like a Metroidvania. I personally love it, but I know that game gets forgotten more than Origins. Another game I feel like I need to explain my owning of, Ben 10 Galactic Racing, a very, very bad kart racing game that I literally own just because Ben 10 is a weird place of nostalgia for me, even though I'm sure I was probably too old to enjoy Ben 10. But I got it for pretty cheap, and hey, I love Yuri Lowenthal, so what are you going to do? Another import title, we have Berserk Warriors, although I think it had a different name here. It basically just goes by Berserk Muso. Huge Berserk fan. I know people are not a huge fan of the anime that it's based off of, but for a solid Warriors game on Vita, this was like such a no-brainer and was dirt cheap to buy on Amazon. Another Red Arts game, we have Bit Dungeon Plus. I can only assume how many other games I'm going to totally flub up. One of 3 BlazBlue games. We have BlazBlue Continuum Shift. That was the launch game in the West. BlazBlue Chrono Phantasm. And BlazBlue Chrono Phantasm Extend. I'm out. I just finished a stack, and I have to drink because I've already been talking for 10 minutes. And we are not close at all to finishing. Borderlands 2, a game I finally platinumed for the first time last year. Wow, platinuming that game on Vita is really, really hard. Not impossible, but yeah, the more you play the game, the more technically impressive it is, and also infuriating as just like kind of... It's infuriating in terms of like, there are some concessions they make that make it a little bit more annoying than it has to be, but if you want to experience Borderlands 2 on the go, it's not a bad way to play it with trophies. Bullet Girls Fantasia, one of the last really hardcore ecchi games released on the system before Sony really started clamping down. RIP Omega Labyrinth Omega or Z. I totally forget which one it was going to be. But yeah, so third-person shooter is in English actually, and lots of lewd stuff happens. Here we have the only physical version of Caligula because for whatever reason Atlas West decided to release Caligula in English, only digitally on Vita, and then never advertise it. So, had to remember this game physically somehow, so here is the Japanese-only physical edition. Really cool to have. Amazing, amazing cover art. So, another game I have to explain why I own before people think, are you sure you're not a full-set collector? So, I recently just bought Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified, which was originally sparked because of my recent interest in playing Warzone with friends. And then after getting excited about Black Ops Cold War, I was like, this is the only Black Ops game I don't own. I don't count 4. And I was like, I found it really cheap on Facebook Marketplace. And after playing it, I'm like, it's definitely an underwhelming game. But for a Call of Duty game on the go, it's not bad. And people still play it, which is the more amazing part. I think if it had zombies, it would honestly be better remembered. Here we have Chaos Child. This is kind of a follow-up to Steins Gate by the same developer. Next up, we have the awesome RPG Child of Light, which I will always remember. The physical version on Vita came out the same day as Bloodborne. I was the only one there who was picking up both of those games. Civilization Revolution 2 Plus. Yeah, a physical version of this game was only made in Asia, and boy, just enjoy that sweet Civilization anime cover art. I'm all here for it. So here we have the Code Realize game collection, which is kind of funny because we have one more coming. So for the release of Future Blessings, they gave this little box that would hold both games. So here we have Future Blessings, which had a very, very hard to get collector's edition for a while. The original Code Realize. And then a couple of months later, we got the final one on Vita, Code Realize Wintertide Miracle. I can't read, obviously. Next up, in the long run of Axis visual novels, we have Caller X Malus, which just recently got a Switch port, so another awesome Otome Vita visual novel game. I don't know which word I was starting to say there. Conception 2, a very, very underrated Atlas and Spike Chunsoft game. I know it's not for everybody, but I definitely enjoy Conception 2 way more than the remake of the first one. Corpse Party Blood Drive. I wanted to say Blood Party. Here's the reverse cover. It's just like super perfect for the tone of this game and just a really underrated horror game for the system. Oh, speaking of underrated horror games, now this is a totally glitchy mess, but the Count Lucanor I'm very fond of for multiple reasons. One of them being the fact that, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the very first Ratalaika game that got a physical edition. And really interesting horror game originally developed by Baroque Decay. They are now probably more popular for their most recent title, Yuppie Psycho. I was always holding out hope that it would also get a Vita port, but I'm sure Count Lucanor, with all of its bugs, definitely had a hard time happening, let alone that game coming. So, PlayStation Vita exclusive that are probably pretty infamous for how horny they all are. Criminal Girls Invite Only. If you don't know what this game is, think Pokemon meets, instead of Pocket Monsters, Chibi Girls, and you punish them with the Vita touchscreen. Next up, we have Criminal Girls 2. Hilariously, the first game came out on Steam, but this one is still a PlayStation Vita exclusive. And a very expensive trilogy. We have Danganronpa 1, Danganronpa 2, and Danganronpa 3. Now, Ultra Despair Girls is next, but yeah, these games are very awesome, are just such a blast to play, and are actually what really got me into the visual novel I guess genre as a whole. I'd always played and been aware of them for the most part, but was never really a huge fan, but that definitely kind of kickstarted my interest with the series. And then we have the super underrated Ultra Despair Girls, which is just amazing story, amazing concept, and amazing soundtrack. And we're done with another stack, so I have to drink. Okay, so next up is another twofer that I guess I should actually kind of split up. So we have Darkest Dungeon, and outside of this being like, oh my god, one of the worst in terms of lighting for a cover, I mean, it nails the like, it's a book thing. So Darkest Dungeon first came out in Japan, and it had English on the cart, but it didn't have any of the DLC. It just had codes for the DLC. Then a few years later, when the Vita was finally ending production, Merge Games through Signature Edition Games, boy, they all have the same name, ended up releasing this complete edition, which was in a really cool box, but I know a lot of people were not like, at that point, it was like, I'm sure the English edition sold way better than the Japanese one, but I know a couple people felt a little burned that the DLC list one happened, but if you wanted the DLC on the cart like me, it was a no-brainer to import. Next up, we have the awesome fighting game Dead or Alive 5+. The super awesome visual novel meets horror game Deathmark. Unfortunately, though, this was one of, I think if not, the last English physical game Axis games ever put out on the system. NG did come out in the West, but it was a digital only. We have Bloodlines, Deception 4 Bloodlines, as well as Deception 4 The Nightmare Princess. This is basically Home Alone if Kevin McAllister had really big tits, and super fun game, really like just not talked about enough, but just super fun. Another Red Art game we have here is the Dear God. This was their final PlayStation Vita title before they had to wrap everything up. Demetrios, oh my gosh. So this is an awesome point-and-click adventure game by, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting his name? Cowcat Games. So this was a game I'd followed for a really, really long time in terms of like the developer on Twitter. And it's just really, really fun, really, really funny. Had a super, super, super low print run. Some more dungeon crawlers here, because the Vita is super, super well-known for visual novels, but does not get enough credit for its dungeon crawlers. We have Demon Gaze 1 and Demon Gaze 2. So both of those are made by Experience, who are basically, if Atlas was forced to make another company and make SMT games or SMT likes, that would be Experience. They're just a bunch of Atlas fans who came together and make a bunch of dungeon crawlers. Next up, we have a really, really cool fighting game that we sadly never saw the expansion of in the West, Dengeki Bunko Fighting Climax. Disgaea 3, Disgaea 4. If you are aware of basically the series, it is a strategy RPG with crazy, crazy, crazy big numbers. And these are just like, if you ever want to play a game and just be wrapped in it for hundreds of hours, that is the Disgaea series. Next up is a game that I'm sure most people always, always, always forget coming to the system at all, but I will never forget. Disney Infinity 2.0. Did it release a week of, or the same week they announced Disney Infinity 3? Did this also come out way, way, way too late to be relevant at all? Probably yes, but the fact that this port is a thing, I will always be really thankful because it got me into the series. Also, if you can't tell, it is raining really loud outside, so I apologize if much of the rain kind of picks up, so hopefully my voice sort of makes up for it. Next up, we have one of many, many, many rhythm games. We have DJ Max Technica Tune, which most people actually didn't know got a physical release. This was one of those sold through online retailers, but I've never seen it actually like at a brick and mortar store, so it might have been, but this was one of those games that when it came out at launch, physically and digitally, was $50, so I'm sure it was like a hard sell for people at the time. Next up, we have a really, really awesome duology I cannot pitch enough. If you love RPGs, and if you especially love Digimon, Cyber Sleuth and Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory are amazing, amazing, amazing games on the system, and are just so much fun to play. I love the music, I love the art, it is just a win all around. Next up is, unfortunately, one that we never got in the West, even digitally, was Digimon World, oh my gosh, Next Order. And this one I found just super cheap on Amazon Japan one day, and was like, I love Digimon, I have the PS4 version in English, and even to make it more heartbreaking, there is an English translation in this game, they just don't have it unlocked, so you have to hack your Vita, but the English translation is in here, just to make it really, really sad. Next up, we have Dragon's Crown. Not the first Vanillaware game on the system, but if not my favorite, is just such an awesome, awesome, awesome game. It has got basically the best of fantasy in terms of like looks, feels, characters, and just is a crazy long and crazy addicting beat 'em up. Next up, we have Dragon Quest Builders, the Asian English copy, and the original Japanese version of Dragon Quest Builders that came out with my Slime edition of the system. I don't know why I'm calling it the Slime edition. But yeah, so Dragon Quest Builders, if you are not aware of, is basically Minecraft meets Dragon Quest, and it has a story mode as well as different creative outlets. Really, really, really crazy, like, just idea for a game, and the fact that it is not only, like, a good game, but, like, is as fondly remembered as it is, just is very, very wholesome, so I appreciate that. Next up on the Dragon Quest train, one that I will never understand why it didn't come out in English at all, at least on the Vita, Dragon Quest Heroes 2. So Dragon Quest Heroes 1 came out on PS3 and PS4. Dragon Quest Heroes 2 is a much bigger open kind of world-ish experience and came out on PS3, PS4, and Vita in Japan, only on PS4 in the West. And this game, especially the Vita port in particular, it plays like a dream. It is super, super amazing. It's just got Dragon Quest nostalgia out the butt, and I love it to bits. I want to kiss it on the lips if you are a Tim and Eric fan. Next up, we have Drive Girls. basic beat 'em up. If you know what Transformers are, it's Transformers, but they're anime. Next up, another dungeon crawler. We have Dungeon Travelers 2. The first of very, very many, so we'll just rapid fire and just say, I love Dynasty Warriors. So here we have Dynasty Warriors 8 Extreme Legends Complete Edition. One of, if not the best Dynasty Warriors games of all time. Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires, the Asian English Physical Edition. Oh, by the way, as of this recording, Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires just got announced, and the fact that they're making a spin-off to one of the worst Dynasty Warriors of all time truly blows my mind, but I think they're aware of it enough that hopefully it's good, but I just had to say that, because I know no one else will listen otherwise, and you're 20 minutes into this video. Dynasty Warriors next, the first Dynasty Warriors on the system. Shin Dynasty Warriors Gundam, I think is the proper title. This never came out in any form in the West on Vita, which is really, really crazy, because this is the last Dynasty Warriors Gundam game that ever came out, and is one of the best Dynasty Warrior games I've ever played. It really, really great, especially if you're a huge Gundam nerd like me. It just has hours and hours and hours of content. So this is a weird one, and our last kind of just regular Dynasty Warrior title. This is, I forget what it's called. I think it was just like, it's like Shin Muso Warriors or something, like Tactics. I'm probably butchering the name. It looks like a normal Dynasty Warriors game, but it plays like a strategy RPG. And I found this for so cheap on Amazon, I couldn't like turn. I think it was like $3 new. And I was like, I gotta play it. Like, even if I never get into it, like just owning the box, it'll be worth it enough. Next up, we have Earth Defense Force 2. Killing giant bugs on the go. A weird string of physical exclusives, for the most part in Europe, published by Sony, related to Disney. So we have Epic Mickey 2, The Power of 2. There is an ESRB version, but that is its whole separate other conversation and much more expensive. So I am more than fine with just the EU version. Interesting port of a pretty sadly forgotten series. We have Exist Archive, a really, really, really awesome RPG series that well, not really series, it's the only one, but I thought that like this came out to just like no one talking about it. It is a collaboration between Spike Chunsoft and Tri-Ace, so I don't know if it was just kind of the aesthetics or the platform it released on. It was PS4 and Vita, but I feel like this game was like instantly bargain bin. We have Fate Extella. I don't own the sequel. I've only got a physical release in Japan, but if you like action games, sort of like a Dynasty Warriors, or probably more akin to like a Senran Kagura, it's just the Fate equivalent. Wow, that is raining really, really hard. Let's just keep going, because let's be real. We're like 30 minutes into this. I think if you can just deal with the aesthetic of I'm doing this on a really rainy Sunday, you're along for the ride. This is this channel. This is the content you expect. So here we have the very weirdly named Final Fantasy X and X-2 HD Collection. I love Final Fantasy. I love Final Fantasy X and X-2. The unfortunate thing is this box is lying to you, as it only has Final Fantasy X on the cart, and it is a physical only. And the code for X-2, while nice that they included it, you know your man had to get the physical version of Final Fantasy X-2 in English. Thank you, English Asian copies. So yes, this has Final Fantasy X-2 on the cart, and a much, much, much prettier, more kind of traditional with the logo only in the white background that Japan and Asia are more common to with Final Fantasy covers. Here we have the often forgotten but very amazing Hunter-like Freedom Wars. Listen, if you have a Vita and you want to try this out, this game is dirt cheap. Super awesome game, and if I'm not mistaken, probably the last one Sony published in the West. It was a very, very, not late in terms of the Vita's lifespan, because I think that game's almost like 5 years old now, but yeah, so Sony gave up on the system very quickly. Here we have the very first and only game on the Vita for Galgun, and just wanted to give a shout out. If you know what Galgun is, hey, cool, you're in the club. But hey, shout out to this having the E for Everyone misprint on the back. I will always find that hilarious. Next up, we have Grand Kingdom. Another kind of forgotten Spike Chunsoft game, but actually was pretty interesting definitely wasn't their kind of cup of tea in terms of strategy RPG stuff. Had a lot of really interesting online mechanics, but those servers are shut down, so don't really get to mess around with those too much. God Eater 2. There is a really funny story about how I got this at TaioCon 2020, and I just want to say thank you for getting me this, Patrick. And I've played it for a little bit, and I still laugh at this box every day. It is just one giant inside joke of a game that I own. Next, we have the God of War HD collection. This was actually developed by Sanzaru, who are more known for the tail-end Sly Cooper games, but a still solid port of God of War 1 and 2. Here we have God Wars Future Past, another NIS strategy game. Gravity Rush 2, I'm just going to say this, awesome series. Get the first one, get the second one. An amazing, amazing game by Japan Studio. I don't know what's happening with this game's price. This game's price is stupid. I was at a used bookstore and found it for like $70, and I thought I was in the Twilight Zone. So, I don't know what happened. That game used to be bargain bin for its entire existence. Alright, we're 30 minutes in, and I don't even think we've cracked like over 100 yet. So, oh my gosh, this one I always need help with. Hakyoko 1, visual novel. Boop. Hakyoko 2, other visual novel. Very, very good. Awesome art style. I'm pretty sure Hakyoko 2 is the last Idea Factory game published in the West. Next up we have Project Diva F1, Project Diva F2, and Project Diva X, not F. Basically, these came out, the second and third in the trilogy for Vita came out physically in the West, but we never actually got the first one. If you guys remember, the series was kind of on, like, I'm trying to think of, like, what it was. Like, yeah, Sega was nervous of if these games would really translate in the West, so they skipped F on Vita, ported over the PS3 version, and then because of the success of the PS3 version, they then finally put out the Vita version digitally only. So, not a super cheap game, but it was one of those things that was like, I like those games a lot, and I might as well just get it to complete the trilogy. Another one which I always love mentioning is like a really weird game. This is High School of the Dead Pachinko, or not even Pachinko, it's just a slot machine. This is a slot machine game playable on your Vita, and it's High School of the Dead related. I love High School of the Dead, RIP that entire series existing, and this is just so weird I had to own it. Thunder noise inevitable, I think. Next up we have Hot Shots Golf World Invitational. I always forget the subtitle for this one. Awesome, awesome, awesome Hot Shots game, but that is to no surprise. That series is super great. Next up, we have Hotelu no Niki. Yes, that is how this is spelled. Hotelu no, because number, Niki with the Q. This was an online physical exclusive because, let's be real, who's pre-ordering this game and knows what it is? Really, really cool series. The developer has a whole bunch of other games we're going to go over here, but yeah, really, really fun 2D puzzle platformer. We have a ton of Neptunia games, so get ready for this. Here we have Neptunia Noir, probably one of my favorites out of the spin-offs. Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 1, the first remake that actually got me into the series. Oh, no, that's not true. Producing Perfection got me into the series, but Rebirth 1 is where I really got into the series. Rebirth 2. Rebirth 3. Super Dimension Neptunia versus Sega Hard Girls. I don't know why I forget the Sega Hard Girls part. If you're a big Sega fan, that game has a lot of really, really funny Easter eggs. Hyperdimension U Action Unleashed. Basically, this was made by Tamsoft, and it's just a big arena fighter. And my very first one I ever did in the series, which is hilarious because it was the last one NIS did before giving the series back to Idea Factory. This is a idol manager game. I remember getting the review code for this and being like, what the fuck is this series? And yeah, I was surprisingly into everything I saw and was just kind of like, you know what? I'm here for this. Let's check out this series. And 9 million games later. Here we have Ice Cream Surfers. This is another Red Art game. This is a very, I don't know. if it's even popular enough to, like, say that it gets crapped on a lot, but it's a fine, like, just, like, side-scrolling shooter. I enjoyed my time with it fine. I really like the art. Here we have the Vita port of Injustice Gods Among Us Ultimate Edition, another fighting game. The Jak and Daxter HD collection, a much, much, much worse quality HD collection, unfortunately, but one that I'm probably strong-headedly going to platinum just because I love Jak and Daxter too much. Killzone Mercenary, probably, if not one of the best first-person shooters on the system. Little Big Planet on PlayStation Vita, and its much, much rarer counterpart, Little Big Planet Marvel Superheroes Edition. The reason this is interesting is because all of the Marvel content in Little Big Planet actually got delisted a couple of years ago, so if you want to play this Vita version with its Marvel content, you have to get this European copy. Next up, we have another really weird European/Vita exclusive. This is Looney Tunes Galactic Racing. Oh no, Looney Tunes Galactic Sports. Is it Space Jam on the Vita? No. Is it funny? No. Is it bad? Also no. So, hey, if you can find it cheap, it's a weird Vita exclusive. Oh, new stack, so I need some water. Oh my gosh. Alright, next up we have one of the final holy trilogy of NIS Vita games from 2019. We have The Longest 5 Minutes. Next we have The Long Reach, another Ratalaika horror pixel art game. We have one of my favorite PlayStation Vita games of all time, The Lost Child. I was so happy NIS finally put this out physically. This is the most SMT-like game you will ever find on the Vita, as I just slam it down to my desk. And it is really, really good. It's still super cheap. It does not have that high of a demand on the market in terms of value, and I cannot recommend it enough. It is just such a blast. Please, please, please more people play this game. It is so much fun. Next up, we have Lost Dimensions. I want to do a video on this game because this game should be way more popular than it is. And I know this is like super clickbaity to say. It's literally just Danganronpa meets Valkyria Chronicles. It's super awesome. It's got a crazy premise, and it's got so many little roguelike elements to it. I'm still perplexed that nobody talks about this game, and I'm kind of always chalking it up to the fact that it was a PS3 and Vita port only at first, and there is a Steam version, but I feel like if this game was maybe on PS4 as well at the time, it would have been a little bit more remembered. Next up, we have one of the best launch games on the system, Luminous Electronic Symphony. If you like Luminous, this is easily tied with the first game for being the best in the entire series. Next, we have another delisted classic. We have the isometric puzzle platformer Lumo. Another super expensive RPG. This is Mary Skelter Nightmares, and yeah, this game has just skyrocketed in value, and I think it's really just because it's a really good dungeon-like RPG, and that's really all I can say for it. It's like, it's just a series. It's not huge, but has just retained so much attention. Another Neptunia game, we have Mega Tag Mention Neptunia Blanc versus Zombies. Another Idea Factory RPG, this is Mayq Labyrinth of Death. The Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, RAP Konami HD Collections. I will forever be salty that the Zone of the Enders HD Collection did not happen, but at the very least, we at least had Armature and Bluepoint give us this game. Such an awesome deal. Has Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, Metal Gear 1, and Metal Gear 2 all in one HD collection. So even though it doesn't have Peace Walker, I still think it is one of the best titles on the system. One that I'm sure is not a popular choice these days, but I own it because it is a good rhythm game. Michael Jackson, The Experience HD. It does not have a lot of Michael Jackson songs. It is just a really good rhythm game, and it was like $3 when I found it. And I remember enjoying this so much that I found a second copy to get the multiplayer trophies with, then immediately just returned it. I'm like, wow, this is my life now, where I'm playing Michael Jackson The Experience HD multiplayer by myself, and I had a really long and hard look at myself that day. I was like, is this the man you want to be? Speaking of, is this the man you want to be? Welcome to How to copy Persona 3's art style. This is otherwise known as Mind Zero. Is it a bad game? No. It's just a pretty whatever, just RPG. It's fine. It's fine with a capital F. Here we have the Sports Power Hour in the form of MLB The Show 12, Canadian version. I don't know why. Thanks, Amazon. MLB The Show 13. MLB The Show 14. And the very elusive Asian English physical only MLB The Show 15. So, American baseball only had a Vita physical in Asia, and in the West it was a cartridge with a voucher in it. Sorry, it was a case with a voucher in it. Does that make sense? No. Do I want this physical cartridge? Yes. Is this a good game? Also yes. MLB The Show, really, really great games. Thank you, Sony San Diego. Moe Chronicles. So, I didn't actually know about this game for a really, really long time, and one of the biggest reasons I wanted to pick it up recently was the sequel just released on Switch. I think it's like Moe Crystal Chronicles? I'm probably wrong, but the sequel came out on Vita first, but never got an official English translation. So if you like this game, hey, check it out. There's a sequel on Vita in Japanese, or you can check out the new English version that just released on Switch by EastAsiaSoft. Alright. We're kind of getting there, I think. I don't know. Mod Nation Racers Road Trip. Really a bad game. Well, not bad game. The worst Mod Nation game, but even the worst Mod Nation Racers game is still a okay racing game. Mortal Kombat. I bought this because it was part of the guy who I bought Call of Duty from. It is a good port, but I'm not super huge into Mortal Kombat, so as a collector, I pretty much bought it as like, hey, this is a unique port with some cool exclusive stuff. Speaking of weird stuff, listen, this is the Muppets video game on Vita. It's not a bad game. It's a side-scrolling platformer. It's not a great game, but hey, I love the Muppets and I love the Vita, so I bought it. Muramasa HD. I don't know why I called it that. That's called Muramasa Rebirth. It's not HD. So this is the definitive way to play Muramasa. The original was only on the Wii, and this is just such an awesome action... I guess, yeah, just action 2D kind of side-scroller game. Cannot recommend this one enough. Next up, we have the Muv-Luv Trilogy, otherwise known as Muv-Luv Complete. Just because this video is already almost an hour, I'm going to leave them in their respective boxes, but this is, you know what, hey, we're here. Let's pop them open. I've not opened this forever. This is a little box that you can't actually tell, but there is, actual artwork very, very lightly on both sides. So this holds the entire Muv-Luv trilogy that is spread across 2 games. We have Muv-Luv and Muv-Luv Alternative, which, to my understanding, this game right here is still the, I think, the highest rated, or at least one of the highest rated visual novels according to Visual Nova database of all time. And from what I played, they are awesome, awesome, awesome games that definitely are well worth all the hype. Oh my gosh, speaking of games no one talks about, that I would love to do a video on. Natural Doctrine. Natural Doctrine, I never say this, and even though this is just such a meme, this is just true. Natural Doctrine is the Dark Souls of RPGs. Just straight up RPGs. Not turn-based, just because this is a strategy RPG. But yeah, this game is really, really crazy, really, really hard, but if you can get into it, it is really, really fun. Next up, we have a whole nother stack. We have Need for Speed Most Wanted, the only Need for Speed and open world racing game, to my knowledge, on the Vita, but is one of the best out there. We have New Little King Story. For whatever reason, got a physical version in English in Europe, so thanks, Konami. Ninja Gaiden Sigma... Don't know why these are in reverse. Sigma Plus and Sigma Plus 2. Nor 9, another Otome visual novel. Odin Sphere. One Piece Burning Blood. I'm gonna butcher this if I try, so this is that anime with the 6 tuplets. It is a visual novel, and I bought this for $1 new. And I probably will never beat it, but it was $1. And yeah, there you go. It's a visual novel. One Piece Unlimited World Red Day 1 Edition. Next up, another duology from Experience. This is Operation Abyss and Operation Babel. Really, really cool dungeon crawlers. Penny Punching Princess. Here's the alternative cover. Really, really interesting kind of top-down beat 'em up, but definitely has RPG mechanics as well to it. Next up we have is Period Cube. Another not RPG, as another visual novel. Another weird one, but hey, this is a PlayStation Vita exclusive game, Phineas and Ferb, Day of Doofenshmirtz. Not a great game, not a bad game, but just cheap enough for me to import it and say, okay, I own this now. PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. I owned this copy digitally for years due to the cross-buy disc, but picked it up before the servers died down a couple of years ago. I'm just a super huge fan of that game. Here we have the first of another duology. This is Psychedelica of the Black Butterfly and Psychedelica of the Ashen Hawk. Next up, another visual novel. We have Psychopaths Mandatory Happiness. Punchline. This is a really unique... I'm trying to think. Yeah, this is a visual novel. So this is written by the guy who did the Zero Escape trilogy, but is super over-the-top anime and still is a really, really insane, just kind of like crazy over-the-top game, which I feel not a lot of people talk about. Next up, we have Puyo Puyo Tetris. Why did this not release in the West on Vita? I don't know. This is the best way to play this game, though. Next up, we have another hunting like. We have Ragnarok Odyssey, and its 1.5 sequel, Ragnarok Odyssey Ace. Followed up by our second to last HD collection on Vita, the Ratchet and Clank collection. Don't mind the ESRB. This is a cover I made for it because I always thought the HD collection covers in Europe were just like really kind of generic or whatever looking. So I printed off this one and I like it a lot more just because it is in line with the North American collection line. Alrighty, our next stack we have Rayman Origins, Rayman Legends, and if you want to be extra spicy, the Rayman Origins plus Legends Collector's Pack, which is both games on one cartridge that only released in Europe and is a crazy cool deal. I'm just a huge sucker for multi-pack Vita games, so I had to do it. Next up, we have Resident Evil Revelations 2. Is this the best way to play Resident Evil Revelations? Far from it, but is the only Resident Evil on the system, and I am just enough of a sucker to import this from Asia to play it. Resistance, Burning Skies, made by the Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified developer. That's all you get. Next up, we have Retro City Rampage, which, to my knowledge, actually started the, at least for Vita, limited print fad, like it's going away. We don't really get a choice. They're not making games after next year for it. We next have Retro City Rampage on Vita as well. This was reprinted last year in 2019 to commemorate the release of Shakedown Hawaii. So, different covers, wanted to support the guy who makes it, so had to do it. Also, to my comment, when I mean no more games after next year, I mean physically only. Obviously, the PlayStation Store is not going anywhere for a while. Next up, another Cowcat game. We have Road to Corpses EX, a twin-stick shooter with a really, really cool over-the-top anime art style. A super underrated adventure/visual novel game. This is Root Letter, which, oh my god, it does say it. You can barely see it, though. I'm sure I'm doing the best job ever possibly showing it, but I legit thought that there wasn't a cover for a second there. But yeah, really, really cool little mystery game there. Next up, we have, by the guys who made Hotel no Noniki, A Rose of the Twilight? Yeah, no, A Rose in the Twilight. Wow, we're really getting there. Some more imports. Saga Garlet's Grace 3. This was originally a PlayStation Vita exclusive. Did I say 3? Ignore that. It's just Saga Scarlet Grace. But yeah, super dirt cheap on Amazon. Had to pick it up. Secret of Mana 2 remake. Physical only in Asia. I love Secret of Mana. It's only in Japanese, but was another one that I just really wanted to own physically. Samurai Warriors 4 2. The sequel to Samurai Warriors 4, not 5, 4 2. English only in Asia. Next up is one that I always think is really, really cool. This is Operation SD Gundam G Generation Genesis. This is a 2-cart game. So the game is so big, this strategy RPG for Gundam, if you want to play this, you need 2 physical cartridges. One installs 4 gigs of data. The other installs the other 2 gigs of data needed. And is just such a cool little piece of Vita history that any collector out there, I cannot recommend it enough. Also, it's just an awesome game. It's a really, really awesome game to play, and thankfully, by some miracle, it came out in English. Next up, we have the first Senran Kagura game. We have Senran Kagura Shinobi Versus. I always get their names mixed up. And then Estival Versus. Here's the follow-up to it. Next up, we have Seven Scarlet, another visual novel. The follow-up to Retro City Rampage, Shakedown Hawaii. Shantae Half Genie Hero, RIP, this being the only Shantae game on the system. Another delisted game, Shinobi Do 2. If you remember this game, please let me know in the comments, because I feel like no one actually remembers this game came out on the Vita, let alone in English. A super awesome game that sadly its servers are turned off, but is still a classic. Sharon the Wanderer 5. This is, what is its full name? The Tower of Fortune and the Dice of Fate. If you enjoy Sharon the Wanderer or Mystery Dungeon-like games, this is easily the best on the system. Here we have Shovel Knight. This was the Fangamer exclusive physical edition. We're almost done with base retail games by some miracle. My god. Next up, we have the very not controversial last Silent Hill game properly released, Silent Hill Book of Memories. Another way forward title. I'll controversially say this. The more I play of this game, the less I hate it. It's not terrible. It's not great. But it definitely doesn't deserve the hate that it gets from people who probably hate it and have never touched it. Next up, we have Slain Back from Hell. The first Signature Edition game. I think it's slowly creeping up in price. It's fine. It's got a lot of bugs. Its presentation is really pretty, but its Vita port left a lot to be desired, unfortunately. Next up, we have the Quadrilogy, I guess, or yeah, I guess that's what you call it. We have the Sly Cooper Collection, which is 1, 2, and 3. Not all on one cartridge, only 1 and 2 are on the cartridge. 3 is a voucher that I hate to this day. And then we have Sly Cooper Thieves in Time. I want to say Thieves Through Time. Another really, really underrated game. But yeah, the Sly Cooper games, all on Vita, could not be better. Smart As, this was Sony's take on the, I guess, make yourself smarter puzzle line of games. How many games do you remember having the Facebook and Twitter logo on the cover? How weird is that? Speaking of weird, we have Soul Sacrifice and Soul Sacrifice Delta. This is the 1.5 Hunter-esque game made by, I forget who the original developer is who made it, but I know this was partly developed in concept by Concept, the guys who most famously came up with Mighty Number 9 and a bunch of other stuff. Next up, we have Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. This is the Day 1 edition. Oh, I should actually give a shout out. This is, by the way, the best kart racer on Vita. Hands down. It's really, really, really good. Sorcery Saga. This is another kind of Mystery Dungeon-like, or... No, it's not... No, this is not Mystery Dungeon-like, as it is more, I feel like, a roguish-like game. But, yeah, if you enjoy dungeon crawlers, pretty fun. It's fine. Shout out to Keith for giving me that game. So, thanks, Keith. SpongeBob Hero Pants. Why do I own this? I found this at a Walmart clearance section for $5, and I was kind of into SpongeBob that weekend, and I was like, I could play this game. My dad will play much of it. I platinumed it. Don't platinum that game. That's not a game worth platinuming. Speaking of an awesome game, though, Super Beat Sonic is awesome. One of the best rhythm games on the system. Cannot recommend enough. Shout out to PM who put that game out. Super Monkey Ball Banana Splits, otherwise known as the last good Super Monkey Ball game that came out. Sorry, Banana Blitz HD. Next up, we have the thickest manual known to Vita kind. This is Summon Night 6, made by the often forgotten, unfortunately, Gaijin Works. Check this puppy out. This is the thickest manual in Vita history, coming in at a whopping 75 pages. Sony says you can't even publish games with that thick of a manual, so clearly they must have had blackmail on Shuhei Yoshida to make that happen. Next up, we have the awesome visual novel Steins Gate, followed by Steins Gate 0. Next up, we have Strangers of Sword City, another really good experience RPG. Next up, we have Street Fighter Cross Tekken. It's fine. It's a fighting game. That's about all I can really give it. Like it runs fine on the Vita. It's just you're not really missing out by not owning it. Taiko no Tatsujin on the Vita, though, you are definitely missing out by not owning it. This was only out in, I guess, Asia. I'm sure it came out in places outside of Japan, but definitely did not get a Western release. Found this for a total steal on a Facebook Marketplace, which in the Midwest is very hard to believe, but I was there nonetheless. Next we have Tales of Hearts R, the only one that came out in English. There's another Tales game that was out in Japan, but I always forget its title. I think it might have been like Tales of Innocence or something. But yeah, so this was a GameStop exclusive in North America, so one of those things of like, I'm sure I'll want it one day, and it was only at one retailer, so I'm sure it had a very low print run. Here we have Tearaway. I'm sure I have lots of things I could say about Tearaway. Tearaway is a super awesome little platformer by Media Molecule, who did Little Big Planet. It's fine. Not fine. It's a good game. It definitely doesn't deserve, like, it's not, like, in the upper echelon of, like, even top 20 best Vita exclusives, but Tearaway is a fun game that is definitely not expensive to get these days, so if you're interested, check it out. Really cute aesthetic. Next up, we have Terraria, because God forbid I own Minecraft on Vita physically. I don't know why I don't. I'm sure I would love Minecraft on Vita. I just haven't imported it. But speaking of imports, we have one of two copies of Teslagrad. You'll see the other one shortly, and by shortly I mean probably within another 100 games from now. Next up, we have the much worse Tetris experience, Tetris Ultimate. Before I had Puyo Puyo Tetris, all I had was Tetris Ultimate, and I love Tetris, so what are you going to do? Next up, we're almost done with alphabetical. We're getting there. We have Tokyo Tattoo Girls. This is a business management sim, and how this got a physical copy, I will never understand. I'm not complaining, I just don't understand it. Tokyo Twilight Ghost Hunters. It is a RPG mixed with Ghostbusters, and I don't know anyone else besides me who likes it. But as a lover of things made by Toybox, who has either done really good work or really bad work, it's, hey, I'd say if you're interested in it, check out gameplay, but it's definitely not for everybody. Next up, we have I think our first Falcon game, unless I'm mistaken. This is Tokyo Xanadu. Next up, we have Touch My Katamari. Boy, I'm sure that was a great title at the time. A good Katamari game. It's fine. It's just like, it's whatever. We next have Toukiden Age of Demon, the 1.5 sequel Toukiden Kiwami, and the super under-talked about, expansive as hell open world game Toukiden 2. What an awesome series. Not enough people talk about, but I am such a huge fan of. Speaking of series that people cannot not shut up about, Trails of Cold Steel, Trails of Cold Steel 2. Do you like RPGs? Do you like Falcom? This is an awesome series. The fourth one, at least, I think is either just about to come out or almost out in the West. Next up, we have Trillion, God of Destruction. Another RPG. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, an amazing port that came out at launch. Didn't really garner a lot of I guess like super positive like memories or whatever with it, but I remember there was a while this game was like not expensive, but definitely was going for over MSRP for a surprisingly long amount of time. So next up we have Uncharted Golden Abyss by the very, very underrated Sony Bend studio. If you like Uncharted, it is better than the first one, so hey, you could do worse. Next up we have Undertale. This is put out by Fangamer as well. It's like right there. I don't know why I didn't see it. Awesome game. You know what Undertale is. Not going to get into it too much, but I will say shout out to its really, really cool Golden Book style manual, which is not actually a manual, but is really, really cool. Next up, we have Unit 13, RIP Zipper Interactive. Here we go. We have another trilogy. We have Utawari Ramono 1. Just came out in the West. Digital only. Boo. But I understand. It's 2020. Next, we have Utawari Ramono 2 and Utawari Ramono 3. Visual novel classics that people all over the world cannot shut up about, but for good reason. They are super, super solid. And one day I will finally finish the first one so I can continue the second one and also review the first one. But hey, I'm just glad that all those games are on the system. Next up, we have probably not a game that people are super glad is on the system, but we have Valkyria Chronicle, I think it was like Azure or something. This is the action spin-off, kind of, to Valkyria Chronicles that came out after 3, but before 4. Still made by the guys who made 4. It's fine. I got it super duper cheap, so not going to complain too much. Valkyria Drive, right? Yeah, no, Valkyrie Drive is a game made by the guys behind Senran Kagura, and it's a solid action kind of beat 'em up game, just like Senran Kagura, just with a different cast of characters. Next up, we have Valhalla Knights 3. Just great job on the cover, guys. Yeah, just throw as many characters on that cover as you want. That'll sell everybody. Another weird one that I already have a video on my channel going over, but we have Velocity. This is an awesome game published by a shitty publisher, but hey, at least they sent this really weird and really rare Vita manual now, because they messed up the printing of the cover and just copy-pasted too many assets from the PS4 one. There's a whole history behind Badlands, so yeah, that's its own thing. Here's a really, really rare game I just got recently. This is rare. Virtual Tennis 4 on the Vita is too rare. It's a great game. It's an awesome Sega franchise that most people don't talk about, but I cannot believe that I waited this long to buy it. It is too expensive, but it is an amazing game. But oh my god, this game, like, if you want an ESRB copy of the game, it is too much money. Next up, we have The Walking Dead Season 1. This is complete with all the DLC, and The Walking Dead Season 2. I will say this, I know not a lot of people played Telltale Part games on the Vita. I really, really loved them. And the final stack of games that are retail, we have Wipeout 2048, World of Final Fantasy, awesome Final Fantasy game, not enough people talk about, The Wolf Among Us, a amazing game that I cannot wait for Season 2, but God knows when that's actually happening, X-Blaze, X-Blaze 2, visual novels, Yomawari Night Alone, its follow-up, Yomawari Midnight Shadows. Surprisingly, the best version of Ys Origins, the limited run version, there's like a huge patch you have to download, but if you import this in Asia, I'd say you get a much better cover, and all the patches are on it. So hey, Ys Origins, check it out. Awesome game. Followed by Ys Memories of Celceta, right? Yep. And Ys 8, which is just look at that cover. That's what a game. If you check this out, this game is stunning on the Vita too. And finally, the Zero Escape trilogy with the Nonori games, Virtue's Last Reward, and Zero Time Dilemma. Awesome games that I hopefully one day will finally get past the first one. Well, actually, I got past the first one. I need to get past Virtue's Last Reward, and then I can finally get into the third one. But very, very long games nonetheless. So I'm going to do a quick little grab of the other games and cut this all out if I'm doing my job right. So Ta-da! Alright, we're back. Sorry about that. So, next up we have is a 6-pack of games by Strictly Limited out in Germany. They are really awesome for just like the kind of crazy games that they put out, but on top of that, I like to give them a big shout out for they did the crazy thing of not only numbering their releases on the spine, but they also like straight up numbered each and every copy so you knew out of however many hundreds there were. So their first title on the system was 99 Vitas. This is a action, I guess no, it's a beat 'em up based off of a Brazilian video games podcast. So definitely niche, but is actually a pretty solid game. Next up is a Dojin game. This is, oh my gosh, I always forget this one. Bunny Must Die, Chelsea and the Seven Devils. Really, really cool Metroidvania type game. And their next title, actually, we got afterwards was Gundamoniums, right? Gundamoniums, yes. I was like, Gundamonius, maybe? This is a shmup, a very, very hard shmup, no less. Next up is a physical exclusive game, actually. This is Sayonara Umahare Kawase Plus. The digital version is just 1+, so there are actually little tidbits and changes in this one that are specifically just in this physical version, which is really, really cool. And shout out to like this collector's edition box, which was exclusive cover art that's just like a rough sketch, is just so clean. Like I really love that cover. Next up is actually their last one they released because hey, production timelines are hilarious. This is the Visara collection. This is a port of two not super well-known shmups from the early 2000s called Visara and Visara 2, ported by the same Brazilian devs who made 99 Vitas. Amazing, amazing collection, and it's just so hard, but so much fun to play. Next up, we have their final title, Necrosphere Deluxe. This is a, I guess, yeah, a one-button platformer. Like, you're pretty much only ever pressing one button at a time, or... No, it's a two-button platformer. You can go left or you can go right. You can double-tap buttons to do different things or press left and right at the same time. Really unique concept. Really, really cool. Shout out to the devs, who I actually talked to quite a bit while trying to play through this game. Really just, like, underrated classic. Like, I really, really, really like this game. So next up, before we get into limited run games, I wanted to finally bring up Teslagrad. So this is not a steelbook, that would be too nice. This is a metal tin that was distributed for Sedesco by Limited Run Games, and inside of it, oh my gosh, is the only ESRB copy. They decided to, for whatever reason, they had announced this was going to be coming out with the European version way back when, and then just said they couldn't find a retail partner. And then Limited Run Games, I guess, somehow stepped in to make this reprint happen. Did this game necessarily need a second print run? Probably not, but I'm sure it gave a lot more people the opportunity to check it out. And the new cover art for it is really great. Teslagrad is a really, really awesome game. But, yeah, so Teslagrad, that is why I have 2 copies. Boop. Okay, transition time is done. We've dragged a whole nother heaping lot of games over here. Next up, we are going through all 101 PlayStation Vita games by Limited Run Games, except the Completion game, because even though I've bought all of their games, and they're all accessible by very expensive means, never mind. There's one game I don't have from them. It's Revenge of the Bird King. But, yeah, I'm sure in the year 20XX, when Super Meat Boy Forever is done, I'll finally get it. First up, we have Breach and Clear. It's the game that started it all for a limited run, and is definitely not the most, like, glamorous game in terms of ones that people like to collect or sort of hunt down, but it is a very, very fine game. Like, I like it. There's not a lot of games really on the system like it outside of, say, stuff like XCOM, so I appreciate it nonetheless for what it's doing. Next up, we have the much more popular Saturday Morning RPG, made by the same developer. Oddworld, New and Tasty. This is the one that started it all in terms of catching my attention way back in January of 2016. Really, really crazy port of an awesome, awesome, awesome game. Cannot wait for Soulstorm. Next, we have Futuridium. Zeo Drifter on the Vita, made by Renegade Kid, and who is now a TUI, and also this is the first LRG game that started with a manual. So always like to give that a little shout out. Thank you, Jules, for making that happen. Next up, from the people now giving us bug snacks later this year, we have Octodad Dadliest Catch. Soldner X2. You will see this game again soon, but very, very popular and infamous in the LRG community for that, if you remember that sales date. Rainbow Moon, very Final Fantasy-esque cover, which I am all here for. Dragon Fantasy 2 Special Edition. One Way Heroics. This was a previously Japanese physical only, but actually Spike Chunsoft worked with LRG way back when, before they got into the publishing game for themselves. Next up, Thomas Was Alone. If you are not aware, this is a super, super awesome game, and I like to always give a special shout out to the back of the box. Yep, that is just black. Love you, Mike Bethel. Your games are super cool. Next up, we have Stealth Inc. Unfortunately, the second game did not ever come to the Vita physically yet. Curve Digital, please, for the love of God, give us Stealth Inc. 2. Awesome, awesome little game. Another Mike Bithell. Classic. Check out the foil print job on Volume. If you are a fan of weird dystopian future stories or are a big fan of Metal Gear Solid, specifically the VR missions, you would love Volume. Next up, we have cover number 1, cover number 2, and finally, the rare PSX cover variant for Oddworld Stranger's Wrath HD. This was a convention exclusive for PlayStation Experience. Will always, 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 always love this cover. So cool. Such a huge fan of Oddworld. Next up, a Jasper Burns classic. I said his name right? Jasper Byrne, yes. Lone Survivor, big Silent Hill vibes, awesome horror game on the system. Cannot recommend enough. Next up by the awesome Tribute Games, Curses and Chaos. Aqua Kitty DX, which by some miracle the sequel is coming to Vita sometime hopefully soon. The Swapper, one of many Curve games. The Swindle. Pixel Junk presents Runner 2 Future Legend of Rhythm Alien. The PAX exclusive cover. This was a PAX East convention cover. Next up we have Nova 111. And a very special place in my heart goes to Ray Gigant. This was another Experience title published by Actilion the West, originally published by Bandai Namco in the Asian territories and stuff, but really, really visually striking, awesome JRPG that thankfully has a physical version now in the West. Alright. Next up we have Mutant Mudds Deluxe. Mutant Mudds Deluxe Super Challenge. Risk of Rain. Broken Age, with an exclusive physical platinum. Demo, another PM Studio rhythm game. Bard's Gold. Darius Burst CS, one of the best shmups on the system. Such a blast to play. Such an awesome game. Oceanhorn. If you are a fan of Zelda-likes, this is one to check out on any system possible. Have not gotten a chance to play the sequel, but the first one is just such an awesome special game. Next up we have Plague Road by Arcade Distillery and the... Why can I not think of what this is called? This is the Kickstarter exclusive cover. I was really having a hard time there for a second, talking about it. Yeah, so this is a game, that was the first game I ever backed through Kickstarter, actually. So really, really big fan. You're going to see a couple other Arcade Distillery games as we go through this list. So make sure to check out their awesome cover arts. I know they're definitely not games for everybody, but I'm just a huge fan. Very divisive Kemco RPG line starts here with As Divine Hearts. Next up, we have the Sealed for a Reason Ease Origins Edition. This is same game, just it requires a lot more patches, so nice that it exists in the West, but yeah, after you have the Asian version, it's kind of hard to warrant. Next up, we have the regular edition of Mecha Tales, followed by the Developer Edition. This was a one-time only thing that definitely didn't go over super well for people in the limited run community, but this was like $10 more and was basically like, hey, it's a different cover, and this is just a way to support the developer. I said, hey, you know what? It's very candid, like saying, hey, this is just for the devs. I was cool with it. Next up, we have the Neo Geo Classic Windjammers, followed by the Windjammers Collector's Edition cover variant, the only way to get that cover. People did not like that as a system, but as a lover of cover variants, I was all here for it. Next up, we have La Mulana 1, SteamWorld Dig, the first one, and SteamWorld Heist, a awesome take on that world there. Still waiting on SteamWorld Dig 2 physical. I don't know what the wait is outside of me having no patience, but hey, maybe one day as I drop more games. Next up, by the makers of Akko Kitty, we have Rockboshers DX, Skullgirls Second Encore, Claire, another awesome little horror game, Fallen Legion. Fallen Revenant, I think, might actually be the sequel's title. Revenant Saga, the Bit Trip regular copy, and the much trippier Bit Trip PAX East exclusive cover. Next up, we have awesome shmup called Skyforce Anniversary. Oh my gosh, this one I always have a hard time saying. Chrysler Sigma, I think is the name of it. Another arena beat-em-up. Oddworld Munch's Odyssey HD 1, 2, 3 covers. Once again, this is the PAX East exclusive cover variant. Much less kind of sought after compared to the Stranger's Wrath one. I don't know if that's just kind of due to Munch being a less sort of popular game in the Oddworld kind of trilogy of games that came out back then. Here we have Factotum 90. Next up, we have Nurse Love Addiction. There's another one. That's why I had to make sure I'm not saying the wrong title. Next up, we have the Oregon Trail. Not the Oregon Trail, the Oregon Trail. So, Oregon Trail meets zombies. Next up, we have Home, Cyrillum, Cosmic Star Heroine, which always got to give a shout out to being a perfect bound manual. It was that thick they had to give it a perfect bind. It is 73 pages as opposed to the 75 in, oh my gosh, Summon Night 6, but still, the perfect bind was a very, very nice touch. Next up, we have Antiquia Lost, Kimco game number 9 million. Super High Dora, another awesome shmup. Musinx, probably one of my favorite, if not top 3 rhythm games of all time, let alone on the Vita. Just a really, really awesome game. This is the third and thankfully not final Cowcat game on here, published by Limited Run. This is Xeon Valkyrie, so more of a Metroidvania type, but really, really cool game. Exile's End, Valhalla, 2064 Read-Only Memories, Senran Kagura Bon Appetit. This one is a really, really special version, if not for the fact of it is, to my knowledge, the only version with all of the DLC on the cart, so that is really, really cool, and just a weird rhythm game. Phantom Strikers? No, Phantom Breaker Battleground. This is a beat-em-up similar to like Scott Pilgrim, but basically developed by Mages and 5BP, who normally are known for doing stuff like visual novels, so that was kind of a fun take of a game, especially to own physically. Sultan Sanctuary. To my knowledge, I think it's probably the only Souls-like on the Vita. Here we have Hue. Next up, we have Neurovoider, a awesome roguelike with an amazing soundtrack. Next up, we have Bastion, made by the awesome team over at Supergiant. Next up, we have Gunhouse. Another World. Shout out to this spine. You will never know what game this is unless you are eye to eye with it. Dungeon Quest? No, Defender's Quest. Serialum, no, I assumed it was Serialum. This is, Dragon Sinker. I don't know why I was having a hard time with this. This is another Kimco game, but definitely a different take on the art style that they're kind of known for. Serialum 2 is why I was confused on the title. Next up, we have Night Trap. Oh my god. The only FMV game on the system. Then probably the reason limited run games think I hate them or whatever. But hey, I'm really vocal about this game, but there's a reason for it. But hey, if you aren't aware of that already, I'm not going to bore you over an hour into this video. I have an interview on my channel with the creator of this version of Night Trap, Tyler Hogle, who is just a super awesome to talk to guy. Next up, we have Rabby Ribby, and it's much harder to find PAX cover exclusive. This is Rabby Ribby. Oh my gosh, I think 600 copies of this cover exist. This was the last convention exclusive cover LRG ever did. And it was very not advertised. Next we have Race the Sun, a super underrated game. King of Fighters 97. Iconoclast, cannot recommend this game enough. Fern's Gate, another Kimco RPG. Proteus, which, unless I'm wrong, I think this is the last physical curved digital game. Spelunky 1, a classic with a capital C on Vita. You need Spelunky. So glad they got a physical copy. Super Mutant Blob Attacks, the game that, at least for me, started it all with Drinkbox. Hey, special shout out to Super Meat Boy, because to my knowledge, I only know one other person outside of Limited Run Games who owns this copy. So hey, just gonna go through the motions of this really quick. Hey, it's Super Meat Boy. It has a manual. It's not coming out for a really long time for a really dumb reason. And yeah, if that ever changes, I would love it too. I don't see that happening anytime soon, but hey, check out this really weird reversible cover. For some reason. Yeah, Super Meat Boy. Awesome game. Couldn't be less excited for Super Meat Boy forever, but hey, one day it'll finally be out, and then the hell of waiting for Super Meat Boy to come out to everybody will finally be over. So yeah, just had to show that off. Super awesome game. Another classic, just had to be on the Vita, so glad that happened. Papers, Please. That one's hell was a little bit less shorter. Awesome manual. It is just the entire employee booklet in physical form. Awesome game as well. Next up we have Guacamelee. I cannot believe how long I waited to play this game. I owned physical copies for years, just waiting for this version to play it, but after platinuming it, it super held up. Loved that game. Pix the Cat, another really underrated kind of arcadey little game. Next up we have Forma 8. Deadbolt. London Detective Mysteria, one of the very few visual novels Limited Run did. Operation Tokyo and Operation Osaka of Damascus Gear. One of my favorite games on the Vita of all time, The House in Fata Morgana. Awesome game, amazing soundtrack, does not ever get enough recognition and is just such a delight. Nurse Love Syndrome, the follow-up to Nurse Love Addiction. Dragon Fantasy 1 finally made its way to the Vita in its enhanced special edition. Chronos Arc. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. Atari Flashback Collection. Rocket Bird 1. Rocket Bird 2. And then as the final couple of games, we have Alone with You, as I'm putting all of the wrong games in the wrong order, which I'm sure will mess me up later. Alone with You. The final Kimco game, Revenant Dogma. At least final physical, trust me. There's still more that we never got physically. Super Mutant Alien Assault. And finally, from Limited Run Games, we have Metal Slug 3. Otherwise known as, here is the cover most people own and think is the only one that exists. And here's the cover that the ESRB does not like existing and is much, much, much more rare. If you are not a collector, try not to sweat it this much. I'm sure finding this cover is just going to get more expensive and more a pain in the butt the longer things go on. But hey, I tracked it down for a reason because I love Metal Slug and I love both cover arts. So had to give a super special shout out to that. So as we transition into our final segment of this video, my god, I cannot believe how long this video is going to be. We're going to end things off with EastAsiaSoft. So let's zoom in on that ESRB friendly gun. All right, final segment, EastAsiaSoft published games physically. Now, why is EastAsiaSoft so important as I'm crinkling things into the camera? That is because they have one of the rare kind of opportunities of they are still the only, they're not a Western publisher, but they definitely cater to Western fans by releasing Asian English games. And so they are still able to make and produce games in Asia, whereas North American and European publishers cannot do Vita games anymore. So, as I mentioned, time's limited. We don't have a lot left, but they've got a crazy amount of Vita games, so I wanted to kind of end off with them, especially considering, like, I just bought a game from, like, last week. So, they are still doing Vita games by some miracle, and I couldn't not be happier. So, they started things off kind of on a weird note of reprinting Soldner X2 because it was so heavily demanded. And Soldner X2 got a reprint. I think this one got like 5,000 copies and was in stock forever. And I'm sure it kind of deterred them from like, oh, okay, the demand's probably not as high as we thought. And they started off pretty slow with their Vita set, but they improved it quite a bit with their first major title of Tachyon Project. So all of their limited editions are special for coming in, for the most part, this nice, really heavy, thick cardboard box. It's got the number on the side of the Vita line. Here is the little certificate sticker there. And every game comes with the game, a manual, as well as a CD for the most part, and usually some tchotchkes. So, next up we have, we're just going to go in order, Semispheres. We have Cursed Caligula EX. The very low print run of Unepic. I think it's got like 500 copies made. Way more standard editions. That was when they were like kind of doing both for a while, and now they just do limited editions. Here we have One More Dungeon. Basically, if you made Minecraft as a Doom mod, but it was a dungeon crawler. It's very unique and very weird. Next up, we have one of the awesome games that used to be a Vita exclusive, but is now on Switch, and I cannot recommend enough people check this game out. Sir Eats a Lot. Really unique, uses almost every bit of the Vita's hardware to its advantage, and is just such a jolly game. Next up, by a very underrated dev, we have Reverie. I think Link to the Past meets, I guess, New Zealand. This is the best comparison I can give it. Next we have Devious Dungeon. Rainbow Moon 1 got a very beefy reprint. And Rainbow Skies, its follow-up, got an even beefier reprint. And by, like, beefy, here is what I mean by, like, their size compared to a regular version. So yeah, these are some biggins. Next up we have Severed, Stay, Fast Striker. Is that really all those? Yeah, just Fast Striker. Really cool shmup. Super Destronaut DX. This is, well, the Intruder Edition. This is actually a physical exclusive game. There's not a digital version of it, which is apparently becoming a trend now, which I kind of want to talk about more in a video that is not this crazy long already. Ghoul Boy. Paddle Box, cannot recommend this game enough. This game is awesome. It is take Mike Tyson's Punch-Out mechanics and put it into a story mode, and it's just really, really crazy. I Am the Hero, Furwind, Habroxia, and cannot wait for Habroxia 2. Devious Dungeons 2. We're almost done. I swear I've been saying that for like an hour, but this time it's true. Here we have Mercenary Kings Reloaded Edition, one of my favorite Vita games of all time that almost didn't even happen, and to have it in this super sweet collector's box could not make me any happier. Next up we have War Theater and Mecha Wars Desert Ashes. Really cool shout out to Luke Bernard. These are also two arcade distillery games. These were originally funded on Indiegogo to be made into ESRB copies, but what ended up happening due to basically kind of what was going to be the best choice was this EastAsiaSoft version that everyone eventually ended up getting. So as a make good for all the backers is that you got the regular version of the game with exclusive slip art, but he also hand-signed all these. So thank you for signing these, Luke. I'm a huge fan of your games, so buy a shilling, I guess, there. Here is probably like one of the rarest and most unique EastAsiaSoft games. This is back in 1995. It is a Rata-like game, but it looks and plays just like a PlayStation 1 era horror game, and is just such an awesome game to play. Here we have Conga Master Go. God, I forgot about this game. Pantsu Hunter, back in the 90s. This is a point-and-click adventure game that kind of looks like a visual novel, but is definitely more point-and-click than anything. Really, really fun game. Really, really awesome aesthetic. Very aesthetically pleasing if you are a 90s fan. Here we have A Whole New World. Really trippy NES platformer that surprisingly runs pretty well on the Vita. And our final little stack of games, for real this time. Knit Underground, a very early Vita classic. Metagal. These now are the 2020 games, so all of these titles after Metagal all have come out in the year 2020. Nightin Plus. Oh my god, no, not Furwind. This is Foxyland Collection, so this is Foxyland 1 and 2 in one game cart. And then we have Kid Trip and Miles plus Kilo? Yes, I want to say Kilo. This is another one. Both games are on one cart. Next up we have Twin Breaker, a Sacred Symbols Adventure. This is just weird in all the best ways. This is made by the devs of Habroxia. This is one of my favorite PlayStation podcasts. It is Sacred Symbols. It is a Pong-like with a story mode, and is just such a blast to play. I think I've platinumed it like 3 times. And finally, we have Emma, Lost in Memories. Not a super like well-regarded game, but like I actually like really, really dig it, surprisingly. Like Emma is a just kind of fun arcadey, like you could definitely tell it was a mobile game for starters, but like my time platinuming on the Vita, I actually really, really dug it. So I have a whole bunch of other games coming eventually that I'll probably do individual unboxing / show off videos for it. But if you made it through this almost hour and a half or over hour and a half, I have no idea where we're even at right now. Thank you so much. If you helped just spread the word about the podcast or just a friend of mine, thank you so much for helping me get to 1,000 subscribers. The channel has not always been my biggest priority, but I've been trying to make it more of a priority throughout all of 2020, and I hope that kind of shows. So from me to you, thank you so much for watching this video. If you love PlayStation Vita, or if you're just watching this because you're really bored and you're a fan of SMTN, thank you as well. I'm just going to keep saying thank you, apparently. Either way, all the links for Twitter and stuff are below, but if you are a fan of the Vita or just want to talk Vita, you can always hit me up on Twitter or comments below anytime, Discord, stuff like that. Thank you guys so much. Have a good rest of your Sunday. And oh my god, this this video was so long, the rain, like the sun is out, if you can tell. We just made it through the entire rainstorm. So thanks for putting up with that. See you guys.